Actual day of the release. Jeff, I'm going to start with you. What happened that morning?
Well, I'll step back just a little bit. The night before, we had a meeting with all the captains, and we came up with a plan that we were going to implement the next morning. And that was going to be about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we were going to bring the team over and evaluate the whale, and then trying to move them off the back of the barge. And then at 6:30 in the morning, one of the team members came in and came downstairs to my room and said the barge is just about ready to leave. And so I jumped into my gear and ran upstairs, and the Robin Hood was totally loaded with a crew from the Fortuna B. And I asked them, we got to wait for our team, and they were expecting to leave at 7. We set that up earlier last night. And they said, well, we're just going to take a look at the whale and just make sure he was all right. And it had been kind of a rough night the night before, and so I did have some concerns about the whale.
So the rough night because of the heavy seas?
Yeah, it got choppy in the middle of the night, and so I almost didn't jump on the barge because they said, well, we're going to come back and we'll get the team. But I wanted to take a look at the whale, and so I jumped onto the boat, and then we headed down to the barge. And as we were heading down to the barge, I tried to go over the plan with some of the people that weren't in that meeting. And they said, no, we're not going to do it that way. And I said, yes,
who said that? Who said that?
That was with the divers and Stefan. And Stefan wasn't in that meeting the night before. It was just the captains in that meeting. And he said, no, we're going to do it this way. And I said, no, we're going to do it.
Okay, so hang on a second. Who was actually in the meeting the night before? Was the entire rescue team part of that meeting or not?
No.
Who was part of that meeting?
It was the captain of the Fortuna, captain of the Robin Hood, and Howie from the barge, and he was one of the co-captain, and so we agreed to come up with a plan to be able to move him off the back.
But wasn't the original idea, because the weather was kind of calm, that we would go further north for 2 or 3 more hours?
Ideally, yes, and we wanted to go as far north as we possibly could. But again, the whale had picked up some dings the night before on the 30th. So we were kind of concerned, and that night of the 1st, going into the 2nd, it was a little bit rough, and I was concerned about just the whale's health. And so when we got to the barge, they pulled up the Robin Hood to the barge, and I said, can you go swing by and get the team? And the captain of the Robin Hood said, we're not going to do that. And I got extremely frustrated with him, and I said, we have to do it. That we have a plan here, and I was designated to be in charge by the captains the night before, and I was not going to do it without having the team there. And so we went back and forth, and he held his ground. He said that we are not going to go pick up the team. And I was just.
What was his reasoning for saying that? Do you have any idea? Why would he say that?
He didn't say, and that was one of the things that was so confusing, not only the language barrier, but why he would respond in this way. It didn't make sense to me, because we had nobody there who had any experience with whales other than myself, and we needed the team to be there to make it safe and humane release. So it was extremely frustrating.
And didn't they originally say to you that they were just going to look at the whale and then go back?
Correct, yeah.
So he literally just decided while you were over there that they weren't going to go back and pick up the vets and also Mike and Kira from the other boat. Is that correct?
So. Yeah, apparently so. And that's the crazy thing is we always, you want to have an evaluation from the behavioralists and from the veterinarians before you release an animal back into the wild. And in this case, we didn't have that opportunity.
And it was required to do so, actually.
Yeah, normally it is, yes. And I would think in this situation it's imperative to do that.
Yeah.
And so it was, again, with the language barrier and the confusion on the barge, it just didn't make sense to me why we wouldn't have the experienced team there that knows how to move these animals and not have them there. And so I was very frustrated. And I did talk to one of the Howie who was on the barge, standing on the barge, and I asked him to radio the captain of the Fortuna B. And he did radio him and I said, who's in charge here? And he radioed back and said that I was. So I immediately went back up to the captain on the Robin Hood and stated what I was told. And again, very, very frustrated, and he refused to do it. So I went back down trying to call the benefactors and try to get their take on this and try to stop the whole thing. I couldn't, there was no signal, so I wasn't able to do that. And I said at that point, we're done here. We're not going to go any further than we are right now until we have the team here. And it was a very intense time. And at that point, the captain of the Robin Hood said that he wasn't going to participate if we had to go back and get the team. And I just thought this was just
So wait,
crazy.
wait. So the captain of the Robin Hood said he wasn't going to participate
Correct.
if
Yep.
you were to bring the team?
Yep. Yep.
Why?
I have no idea. None of this made sense.
No, it doesn't, as a matter of fact. So where exactly were you? Were you on the Robin Hood or were you on the barge?
On the Robin Hood, tied up next to the barge.
Where on the Robin Hood? Could you actually see what they did?
Well, I was at that point. I was at the back of the deck, and I went up to the captain on the Robin Hood 3 times, demanding that we bring the team over and get them there to assist with the release, and he didn't. He said no every single time, and there was just no way he was going to budge. So I went up at that point. I'd been in the back downstairs in the back of the barge and on the deck. And I went up into the flying bridge, and I could observe what they were doing. And so they placed the Robin Hood at the back of the barge and had it tied off there. And then they attempted to try to get a tail line onto the whale.
Was the captain German?
Yes, I think so.
Did he speak English?
I think a little bit, but not. He spoke just a little bit in the meeting the night before, and that was really my first interaction with him. But I don't know how good his English was, but when he spoke, it was very clear.
Now, in a press release, the shipping company said that they were actually just opening the barge and trying to pull the barge away from the whale. But this is not what you saw. And you managed to take 2 short video clips on that day that show very differently. In fact, they show exactly what happened. So what did you see?
So from the position up on the flying bridge, I had a very good view of looking down the length of the barge, and the whale was at the very end of it, and it was a big barge, about 150 feet long, and I saw Stefan trying to push the head of the whale around to see if he could push the whale out. But we knew at that point that the whale was way too big to be able to make that turn. And he tried numerous times, but he wasn't able to do that.
And actually, I do want to show that our viewers, because that is, as a matter of fact, on video. And I want you to listen very carefully, because I want you to hear the whale sound and watch it. Now that man was identified as Stefan Meyer?
Correct. Yes.
Now let me ask you, Jeff, to your knowledge, does he have any experience with whales?
None whatsoever. And the first time he'd been with the whale was the day before when we brought the divers in to work around the whale to get used to him and tell them how to approach the whale and where the safe places to be are around him, because these are very large animals and they can injure you very, very easily. Stefan was very confident, and I don't know how, I think he was pretty experienced, but he was very confident around the whale, and his divers, and we multiple times told them, to step back at times, and they didn't listen very well. That was one of my concerns when we did try to release the whale. That's why I wanted my team there. The team was experienced, they knew how to handle the whale, and we didn't want to have anybody injured.
And then when they pulled, I mean, I know we've seen in the video that they actually had the tugboat right at the back of it. So what then happened after that? How did they take him out?
Well, I'll even step back a little bit further. I would have taken more images, but the skipper of the Robin Hood came up and grabbed my phone and said, no photos taken. And grabbed my phone, and I had to pull it back out of his hand, and he was going to throw it overboard and threatened to do that. And so I promised that I wouldn't take any more video. I put my phone in the pocket and had to watch what took place. Get a picture so we can document. Okay.
What is that? I told you.
Yeah.
No picture.
Okay. I put it away. But what they did at that point was they tried to lasso the tail, and they used a pike pole, which is a very sharp object. It's like a boat hook with a very pointed end on it. And try to, between lassoing it and trying to bring it over the tail to get it to tow it backwards. And that was certainly not in our plan to use a boat hook like that.
And then they just pulled him out backwards?
And then they hand pulled him to the back, and then they tied off one of the lines to the Robin Hood, and they had made 2 attempts. The first time failed, and on the second attempt they were able to get both lines over there. And then they pulled the whale back, and it felt like to me that the tugboat captain put the tugboat into reverse, and with the Fortuna B moving at about 4 knots, that caused the animal to come out of the boat very, very quickly. And we had these big sandbags in there. They weighed over a ton each, and he couldn't get over them. And so, they pulled him backwards with his pectoral fins out, just being extended as far as it could extend them, and yanked him over these sandbags and then out off the barge. So it wasn't how we intended it at all. We wanted to make it a nice soft transition and not confusing for the whale, and certainly we didn't want to injure the whale on the release.
But I have to clarify something. When you say this wasn't how we intended to do it at all, who is we?
The team, that we came up with a plan on how to get him out of the back.
So
of
the rescue team.
Correct. Yes.
Right. So it sounds like what you've been describing, that they literally just used brute force and pulled the whale out like a freight.
Yeah, very much so. And our plan was to hand pull him out of the back. And these are really large animals, and but a couple people, just Mike and Kara, were able to position him in a way the day before that they almost got him off the back. But we didn't have the leverage to be able to do it because we could only pull him so far, and then he'd swim back in. So we needed to be. We were hoping to be on the Robin Hood and just pull him back, but with the Fortuna B traveling at the speed that it had been towing the barge at, and the Robin Hood backing off, he came off awfully fast, a lot faster than we wanted to see.
So what happened to the whale after he was off the barge?
Well, he came up. You could tell he was a little disoriented. He was trying to get his balance. The line that they were pulling him backwards on came off, and he came up and took one kind of a half a breath, and then Then he kind of righted himself and took a couple more breaths, and then he started swimming a little bit stronger. And we have video of that too. And that was when I was able to, I asked the captain at that point if I could take a photo, and he said you could take video. And so I shot a little video at that point.
So from all your experience with working with whales, the way they pulled him off, would you classify this as animal cruelty?
I would say it's on the verge of it for sure. Yeah, I mean, this is something that shouldn't have taken place, and that it shouldn't have been handled that way, especially with inexperienced people that don't know these animals. And seeing the animal come off, you know, we built a trust with this animal and a bond, and this animal responded very well to that. And then to have him yanked off the back of the boat and put him in a situation where he's very disoriented and not really knowing what's going on, that was compromising to the whole situation.
How did that make you feel having to watch that? Seeing someone who's in the water, who's never worked with a whale, doing stuff they should not have done, pulling out the animal with force, brute force, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Oh, I was super angry. I could not believe it was happening. After all this time and work that we put into trying to humanely get him onto the barge and take care of this animal and give him a chance to live, and then to see him yanked off the back of the barge, I can't imagine what was going through the whale's mind at that point, you know, but because he was confused, and it was really inhumane in my opinion.
Let's move over to Kirsten. Kirsten, erzähl mal, wie hast du das wahrgenommen an dem Tag?